Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing your ex's real feelings after the breakup. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing your ex's real feelings after the breakup. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will likely wonder about your ex's feelings after they ended your relationship. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 points to consider regarding your ex's real feelings after the breakup. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is shock. Now, if you're listening to this as a dumpee, you're probably thinking, well, I'm the one who's shocked. They shouldn't be shocked. They knew what they were doing. They made that choice. They said those words. They sent that text. They ended the relationship. They knew what was coming because they decided it. I'm the one who's shocked. I'm the one who's blindsided. I'm the one who's heartbroken. Now, I'm not taking away any of those thoughts and feelings that you as a dumpee are having. But what I need to tell you is that most dumpers will also feel shock. And the shock can come from different angles. One such angle is the fact that they've actually actioned the breakup, something that they may have been considering for weeks or months. Now, you're probably thinking as a dumpee, well, I don't want to hear that my ex-dumper was thinking about ending the relationship for all of that time. But we have to speak of reality here. We have to speak about the real feelings that your ex is likely to feel after the breakup. And we do have to consider shock, and one of the reasons why they might be feeling shock is because they didn't necessarily know if they was ever going to have the guts to actually end this relationship. It takes a lot of courage to end a relationship sometimes. You have to realise that the dumper knows that this is going to cause shockwaves for not only their own life, but your life as well. Contrary to popular belief, most dumpers do not want to hurt their dumpee. Most dumpers do not want to cause the pain that they know is likely going to take place. So the fact that they've actioned the breakup does create a shock feeling within a dumper because they can't believe they've actually done it. Yes, they thought about it. Yes, they believed it was the right thing to do, but it doesn't mean that they ever felt they would have the courage to go through with this because they knew that the vibrations beyond this point would be huge. It's going to be causing ramifications for their own life, for your life, potentially for friends and family, maybe even work, children, if you have them together as well, of course. So the shock of actually making that decision is often something more common than a dumpee could imagine in their ex's mind. Now, there is another reason as to why a dumper might be feeling shock at this time, and that is the shock that they've actually done something that they didn't expect, and this is the opposite reason for what I've just explained. So although most dumpers will be thinking long and hard about ending a relationship, sometimes a dumper will make their decision quite quickly. And this can often be based upon the action of their now dumpee. Let's just say, for instance, a dumper felt that their relationship was going amazing. It was the best relationship they'd ever have, and they wanted to live happily ever after with their current partner at the time. Then they find out that their current partner has cheated on them. And the initial shock about what that has done to the dumper's mindset creates the situation where they instantly end the relationship. Now, that is just, of course, one example, but a classic one, where somebody finds out their partner's cheating on them and they instantly dump their partner. They're feeling shock about what they've heard, what they found out, and what they're feeling, and they're actually feeling shocked about the fact that they've actioned a breakup that they never thought they'd ever do. They never thought in a million years they would end the relationship with you. They never planned it, they never thought of it, they never expected it, but after what they found out, they felt they had an automatic response just to end that relationship. And that is where a dumper can be feeling shock as well. So when we're talking in today's podcast and we're asking the question, what are your ex's real feelings after a breakup? It's so important to consider point number one, which is shock, because it is so common. And a dumpee might think, well, that is very unlikely. Why would they be feeling shocked? But like I've just said, they could be feeling it because they never thought they would have the courage to make that decision. They could be feeling it because they never expected to find out the news that they did. Theoretically, maybe the dumpee was cheating on them. And they never believed that they would action a breakup ever in their life because they thought they'd live happily ever after with their partner. But after hearing the news that they did, they then made that instantaneous decision, almost without thinking, the opposite reason to what I said a little earlier, and that can leave a dumper in shock. So the feelings of shock for a dumper are real, they are true, they are common, and even though a dumpee might not expect it, it's something which is the reality. So now let's get into point number 2 on the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And point number 2 is relief. So when we consider feelings, thoughts, emotions that will go through a dumper's mind after they action a breakup, we have to recognise that relief is likely to be a huge feeling that they feel. Now, if you're listening to this as a dumpee, this is something else which is probably going to almost make you feel, what? Do I really want to be hearing this, but they're feeling relief after dumping me? That's horrible to hear. But again, please keep listening through because hopefully it will make more sense. Let's connect point numbers 2 to point number 1. When we're speaking about your ex-dumper potentially feeling relief after the breakup, we can clearly link this to what I first spoke about in point number 1. Which is, maybe the dumper was in a position where for weeks, if not months, they considered ending the relationship. It went back and forth in their mind. They thought one moment they would do it, then they thought, no, we're going to just battle through this and try and get through this situation. It came to a point where they felt they had no choice but to make that decision to end the relationship. And once they do that, often a dumper will feel relief because it's a huge weight off their shoulder. If you consider a situation where you've been thinking about, worrying about, wondering about for days, weeks and months, and then it gets to a point where it actually happens, you can probably resonate with that feeling of relief. Maybe, for instance, you're dreading doing something. Maybe it's regarding something you're doing at work. Maybe it's a social event you don't want to go to. You're worrying for days, weeks, months. Then the time actually comes, it happens, you feel relief that it's over. You feel relief that you've got over that mountain that you felt you were climbing and now you're out the other side. Your ex-dumper is likely to feel this because they're very unlikely to actually have wanted to hurt your feelings, because they're very unlikely to wanted to go through the whole process that they knew that was going to shock your world, their world, break your heart, change everybody's life within this. They didn't necessarily want this to happen. This wasn't something that they ever thought they would have to go through, and yet they believed they had to. They believed they had no choice. They believed this was the only decision they could make. And therefore, it was a mountain for them to climb. And once they finally got to the top of that mountain and over the other side, they feel relief. I don't have to worry about thinking whether or not to end my relationship because I've done it. I don't need to worry about how I'm going to action a breakup. Am I going to do it in person? Am I going to do it via text, via call? Whatever way they decide to do it, they've now done it. The worry, the speculation, it's now happened. Yes, there's going to be ramifications, but at this moment in time, your ex-dumper is likely to be feeling relief. A big sigh of relief that something that they didn't want to do, but felt they had to do, they have now done. Now, this is why as a dumpee, it's so important to recognise what you can do to increase the chance of getting your ex back if that's what you want to do, because a lot of your chance of success is going to come from how you deal with the aftermath of a breakup. I'm speaking about how your ex-dumper is probably feeling relief after the shock that they would have initially felt after breaking up with you. But this is going to alter as well depending on how you as a dumpee behave during this time. If you start behaving in a way where they feel they've made the right decision, then absolutely this relief is going to grow within themselves to them thinking, I've made the absolute right decision. What we need to be doing as a dumpee is making sure that relief eventually evolves into regret. Yes, we're going to be feeling relief because they've done something we didn't necessarily want to have to do, but they don't have to feel relief forevermore. This can evolve and change into regret, but this will depend on how you as a dumpee behave beyond this point. Now, if you want support and guidance on how to try and increase the chance of getting your ex back, if you want help on trying to evolve that feeling of relief into regret, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about your ex's real feelings after the breakup. And point number 3 is worry. So we've already spoke about point numbers 1 and 2. We've spoken about the shock. We've spoken about the feeling of relief. But now we're moving into the feeling of worry. Now, this isn't necessarily the regret that I mentioned a few moments ago that you can help move your ex's mindset into. But this is something that a dumper is likely to experience post-breakup when they are thinking and feeling and wondering about their now dumpee. Because as I've been saying throughout this podcast, most dumpers do not want to hurt their ex. Most dumpers do not want to hurt their dumpee. Most dumpers are feeling somewhat traumatized about doing something they didn't want to do. So beyond the shock, beyond the relief, there comes the worry. What are the ramifications? What are the vibrations and reverberations beyond this point about how things are going to be from now on? How are you as a dumpee going to be feeling? What is your reaction going to be? What are friends and family going to say? Are there children involved? Is there a marriage that maybe, unfortunately, in the dumper's mind, has to be ended into divorce? So many things now come beyond the point of a breakup that your dumper is likely to worry. They're likely to worry about how their life is going to be beyond this point, how your life is going to be, and how anybody else's life, considering potential children, family and friends, how everybody is going to be from now on. This is the moment where the line has been drawn in the sand, and beyond this point, everything is different. And your ex-dumper is now starting to worry about how this is going to be. Now, along with this, they're likely to move into what I call the single honeymoon period, where somebody who is freshly single lives their life the way they want to live it. But it doesn't mean that when they're home alone, they're not thinking and worrying about the potential outcomes and situations and scenarios which are now playing out beyond what they know. This is why and when a dumper is likely to look on social media. This is why and when a dumper is likely to speak with friends of friends and wonder and ask about how their dumpee is doing. So many dumpees ask me, how is my ex going to know about my progress if I don't reach out to them? If I've turned my life around, if I'm a version 2.0 of myself, how is my ex-dumper going to know that I've changed my life for the better if I don't reach out to them and say, hi dumper, look what I'm doing now? Okay, that of course is not going to help your cause as a dumpee, but the reason and how a dumper can find out is often via social media and friends of friends. There can also be other ways. You might be surprised of what your dumper will do to find out information about you. Now you might think, well, why do they care? They've ended the relationship. Well, as I'm just explaining, your ex-dumper is likely to go through a phase of worrying, wondering and thinking about what is going on with you and everybody else within the situation. And if you've implemented my version of a no contact rule, which is what I do suggest you do if you've been dumped and want to try and increase the chance of getting your ex back, then this is a scenario where they're not going to be hearing anything from you. You've now gone into your own world of focus doing your own thing, and although they're doing their own thing, when they're alone, they are going to be wondering and speculating about you. So this is how and when your ex-dumper can get to that point of asking what you're doing, checking on social media and seeing if you've evolved, grown and changed and checking up that you're okay. This is how you as a dumpee can increase the chance of getting your ex back by showcasing the positive changes you've made. I'm not saying your ex is perfect. I'm not saying your dumper is right for why they dumped you, but what I am saying is that none of us are a finished article. I'm certainly not, they're not, and you as a dumpee are not. So you need to improve yourself. You need to become a version 2.0. You need to be a better person today than you were yesterday, and a better person tomorrow than you are currently today. Because the person that your ex dumped is not somebody that they want in their life. You need to evolve, you need to grow. If you want your ex back, you've got to prove yourself by doing your thing, living your life, and trusting the system that somehow your ex will find out about what you're doing, how you're living, and realising that maybe they've made a mistake. This is how we can get to the point where a dumpee can re-attract their ex by growing romantic emotional attraction in their mind, even without communicating with them. Like I said, if you want advice and support, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service where we can speak about your specifics. My website is www.dateme.tips. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.